Hello, and welcome to this little reflection about crucial conversations. So, to begin, I'll talk about my score that I received on the communication test. And so, I actually received about an 88% out of 100, and that represents my ability to speak for myself. So, 100 is obviously complete ability, and 0 would be probably absolutely no ability to speak for yourself. And I scored about an 88%, which I find very, very fitting for me. Sometimes I often think that I can be an extremely assertive person. And actually, I think it honestly just depends on the situation that I am put in and the people that I am surrounded by. And so, if it is a difficult situation, I have actually seen my assertiveness level go down. I've seen that mostly this year, learning how to communicate within difficult situations or learning how to communicate with people that aren't used to having me around and or someone telling them what the medical decision should be. Within a school that has not had an athletic trainer or a full-time athletic trainer before. So definitely had some tense conversations, and I've seen myself change under pressure, or take maybe a bad experience for a crucial conversation and kind of keep that in my head and assume that if I bring up this same subject again, it's going to end badly again. And so I hesitate when I decide to bring something up that I believe is important. But anyways, 88% is definitely me. I'm definitely confident enough to bring up something that I believe is of concern, especially when it has anything to do with patient health. For that alone, I do not hesitate because I know that I'm doing it for the right reason. If it's more of a personal issue, then I may hesitate a little bit more depending on how a previous conversation may have gone. So, for instance, this wasn't the most recent conversation, but to say what I mean in a better way, I had a conversation with my athletic director several months ago, and it was over my lack of a room. And that was the conversation, that was probably one of the first crucial conversations that me and the athletic director have had, that was over a subject that both of us did not end the conversation well on. So when we think about those three stories, I definitely played two of those stories in my head, that the athletic director was the villain, because he wasn't giving me something that I needed, even though it was promised to me many months before that, and that I was the helpless one. So I had nothing to do with it except for the fact that I wasn't getting what I thought I needed. So yeah, definitely played those two cards. He played those two cards, I think, in a way as well. Now that I think about the conversation, and I think we both played them. And so the conversation did not go well. And since then, the room has not been brought up since then. Partly for other reasons. The fact that, things may change in the next few months anyways. But I've also stopped kind of playing that helpless / villain card in my head when I think about the situation, or I do my best not to. And I've made modifications to whatever I was given already. And so that conversation will always stand out in my head as something that I wish I could go back and change. And so the most recent conversation that I've had, though, was with my, I'm sorry, I've had hiccups, was with my wrestling coach. And it was just this past Friday or last Thursday, I think. It was right before sectionals. Sectionals was last Saturday. And I had to come up to him and talk to him about probably one of his top athletes and an injury that they recently sustained pretty much the night before. And the treatment that needs to come with that. And part of that was skipping out on a lot of the practices for the next 2 days if he was going to be able to try to be in sectionals. I knew I couldn't pull him completely out, but I knew that if we made these pretty big modifications to the next two practices, that he, with enough rest, should be able to at least get through Saturday. And I knew before I even walked up to the coach that this was going to be an issue. I've had a couple issues like this before with the coach, where if it's somebody that he absolutely needs, trying to talk to him about treatment, especially if rest is in there anywhere or modification to the practice can't go all the way, well, there's no need for him to do this practice since it's only an hour long and you're not actually doing anything that may benefit him for sectionals. So things like that, they're very difficult conversations to have with the coach already. And so I walked into it knowing that we already kind of have, I wouldn't say we have a bad relationship, it's just when it comes to evaluation and treatment of a patient that's one of his wrestlers, it's kind of hard to deal with him. And so I definitely think that I went into the conversation not too bad. I think I have grown more confident with addressing needed situations with the wrestling coach the more I do it with him. But I still sometimes, I think I played the villain card a little bit last Thursday, just expecting him to kind of be in my face about the situation, not agree with things, argue with the patient about his pain level. And so I definitely walked into that conversation with a little bit of the villain card in my head. But I definitely was a lot more assertive. I was pretty calm, told him the situation. He went through his usual, let me argue about it, the patient's pain level with the patient in front of me, because he thinks it's kind of funny, but he thinks it's, I don't know, he's just kind of weird. But anyways, and then, argue about the modifications. Are they actually necessary? Is rest really that necessary? We have sectional Saturday. So we definitely did the usual arguments that we always do. But this time I think I pretty much just laid out the facts for him. Patient was with me, and he argued a little bit with the patient. But when all said and done towards the end, I kind of just decided just to wrap it all up. Told him, I asked him for his opinion about some of the modifications in the practice, and if they're doable, and I asked him if there was anything else during the practice that he could possibly do, but do on a different level than the other athletes, so on and so forth. So I did ask him for his perspective, and then I kind of wrapped up the conversation with a big bow by giving the main points and remembering the main modifications. And then I kept my eye close on the athlete for the next 2 days just to make sure that no funny things were being pulled. So I definitely handled it, I think, pretty well. Attitude was still a little bit there when it came to the villain card because of just a few past experiences with him. And I think that's something that the more you practice when it comes to communication, the less you'll play those cards, even if they are sort of true. So this, the wrestling coaches may always be difficult to work with. But if I don't give him the chance to be difficult because I'm not showing him my true emotions, then the conversation will be a lot shorter and a lot smoother. And so I've kind of seen that every time I talk to him. I kind of make sure that I have a plan in my head as to what I'm going to say, and how quick it can be and how efficient. Pretty much know the questions he's going to ask anyway, so I kind of have him on those. And so every time I communicate with him, I think it gets more and more efficient and less frustrating now that I'm figuring him out. So anyways, that's all I have reflection-wise. Really enjoyed learning about the crucial conversations. The video was awesome, and it was actually pretty eye-opening. And like I said, I definitely have flashbacks to several conversations towards the beginning of the school year that I wish I could change. But lo and behold, we're all learning. So thank you for listening.